Hi guys, welcome to video number 8 in the series of videos I'm doing on the Canon EOS 500D, T1i and KISS X3. Again, another video on one of the more automatic modes, this time macro mode. So we'll go over what control that we have within this mode and what we'd use it for. Generally macro mode you would use for close-up shots of subjects, say for example flowers, or a still life subject, maybe an ornament and so forth. So we'll cover a few details on that, and plus a couple of things that you need to consider whilst using this mode. Okay, the macro automated mode. A couple of things to consider just to go over before we have a look at the menu settings and so forth. Is the close focusing distance is going to be dependent on which lens you have fitted. The kit lens, the 18 to 55mm kit lens, doesn't do too bad close focusing wise. I believe it actually states on the lens, here we go, the close focus distance, if you can just read that there. So, now the macro symbol there is a flower icon, and it's 1/4 of a metre or 0.8 feet. So it will vary depending on which lens that you use, so bear that in mind. One thing you can do to bring your subject closer, to get around the issue of close focusing distance, is you can actually zoom in as well to do so. So that's just a couple of things to consider. So what we'll do now is we'll go over the menu system and what control over settings that we have on this automated macro mode. Okay, here we are, just having a look at the menu system on the automated macro mode. Now, in the actual full menus, again, very similar to the previous modes that we've looked at, and the auto mode is where we can change the date time, the LCD brightness, format a card, and some of the basic functions for the camera, and so forth. If we actually try to change any of the more advanced options, like the ISO, we can't, that's automatic. White balance, that's automatic as well. The picture style has been chosen for us there as well, that's shown as standard. And we can choose the single shot drive mode and self timer again, whereby say if you set a tripod up to take a macro shot, you'd probably want to use a self timer to eliminate any kind of camera shake. So pressing the set button shows us what we can change. Again, just like the previous mode, very basic. We can change what picture quality mode that we use, so shooting in RAW plus JPEG, and the different size JPEG files there. Or, we can change the shooting drive mode. So again, a very automated mode, but valid to use if you want to use the camera for macro or close-up photography, if you don't have, say, a dedicated lens. Macro photography, generally you will get better results if you have a dedicated macro lens, but they can be quite expensive, and they will need use of a tripod because generally they don't have image stabilization unless you go for some of the newer generation of lenses, which are going to cost around £1,000 at the moment. You can use extension tubes. That's one option, which is quite a cheap option, but you lose in many cases autofocus, and again it's non-image stabilized. But depending on what lens you're using, so bear that in mind. The kit lens does quite well with close-up photography because it's a fairly close focusing lens, and some of the other lenses will vary. For example, the 50mm prime lens, the f1.8, needs to be quite far away before it will focus, so it's not particularly good for macro photography unless you use extension tubes. But we'll cover things like that in more detail in later videos. If you've got any questions at all, then please put them in the comments. Mail me direct on YouTube or via Facebook or via my website. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll do my very best to answer them for you. So that's just been a quick introduction to the close-up or macro mode on the camera, again one of the automatic modes, and in the next video we'll be going over the sport mode. Thank you very much. Bye.